Welcome back to Backward Point Podcast. My name is Nazar Sayed, and this is an episode about the death of international cricket. With me, as always, the optimist, the forward thinker, Ahmed Bashar Sayed, as my co host.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I drafted this episode yesterday. It sort of hit me like a brick. I felt like there's not a lot of Pakistan cricket stuff going on. I mean, there always is, but
There always is.
this topic in particular,
Who's playing musical chairs this day with the PCB chairman seat? We don't know. So there's always Pakistan cricket news, but is it even worthwhile discussing? Is the option?
yeah. Sometimes there's so much news that you gotta block out the noise.
Too much news is no news as well.
Yes.
So you decided to focus on this Wisden article and then sort of maximize and see the broader picture of what is going on in international cricket and specifically Test cricket.
Yeah, it's sort of what triggered this whole episode is the interview Jason Holder gave to the Hindustan Times, as I understand. And then Wisden Cricket wrote an article about this. I read that article. And even before I read that article, I was just monitoring what's happening in the world of cricket. So many leagues happening just as we record this podcast right now. And I was thinking about all the other leagues that happen all year long.
Could you name the leagues happening right now at this moment?
Just as we record this podcast right now, we have the BPL happening, the Bangladesh Premier League. We have the South Africa T20, which is the SA20. We have the International League T20, the IL T20 happening,
The Dubai League.
the Dubai League. So three leagues happening at the same time.
And the BBL just finished.
The BBL the final
And-
just happened.
And the PSL is right about to happen in like a couple of weeks.
Right. And then on top of that, there's also international series happening right now. So West Indies right now is facing Australia in Australia. England is in India for test matches. Sri Lanka is facing Afghanistan next week. South Africa is touring New Zealand next week. So there's just a lot of cricket happening. And the essential idea that I want to explore in this podcast, this is more of like a free-flowing conversation. We have points, but sort of notes to feed off of, but this is going to be more like discussion,
A think piece.
a think piece.
Yeah.
Legacy podcast.
Sure.
You know what it is. So it sort of made me question, like, are these leagues threatening the existence of international cricket and more specifically test match cricket? Now, test match cricket, I say this because just recently we had a player from Pakistan like Haris Rauf who was, offered to play for Pakistan in test matches. He opted out to play the Big Bash. Just right now in the West Indies squad to Australia, Jason Holder opted out. Nicholas Pooran opted out. Kyle Mayers opted out. In the past, Trent Bolt declined a contract for New Zealand cricket. So he can be more of a free agent playing leagues all over the world. And something similar happened with Mohammad Amir and Imad Wasim. They've sort of retired from the international scene and they've become free agents because, honestly speaking, that's just the more financially viable thing to do.
And you're forgetting the most important thing that sort of shook up the whole system was the squad that South Africa is sending to New Zealand.
Exactly.
What, 10 or 8 uncapped players?
Seven uncapped
Seven
players.
uncapped players in a test match squad going to New Zealand.
And what's the reason behind that?
The SA20 was happening bilaterally.
So they can have their prime players, their top tier players, compete and play in the SA20 in South Africa. And so that's what begs the question, is test cricket sort of taken a back seat for South Africa? More specifically, we had Steve Waugh, one of the legends of the game, one of the great captains of the game. He posted a picture on Instagram. It was the squad announcement for South Africa's team. And he also had a very lengthy post, which I just read a few snippets from. He says, "Is this a defining moment in the death of Test cricket? Surely the ICC, along the cricket boards of India, England, and Australia," so he points out the big three, "they must step in to protect the purest form of the game." Now, he recommends a few things of how this can happen, and we'll get into that. But just to firstly address how big of an issue this is, and this could be an ongoing issue with other countries finding their own leagues, and well, everybody sort of has an established T20 league. They could also branch out to T10 leagues a 100 over league. So there's
100
just
ball league.
100 ball league. Sorry. So there could be more and more cricket, more and more leagues being established in the coming years.
Now, a lot of people might just go onto this comment section and talk about how we may be just concern trolling, which just basically means as we're just trying to like create some havoc, create some stress around the death of international cricket. It's just a flu-fla thing. It's not real, but there's actual evidence going against the the survival of international cricket. The points that we just raised, and then the second thing is just the money that's coming into league cricket. League cricket, firstly, the T20 aspect of that is just it's mouthwatering. It's salivating for a lot of investors, for a lot of advertisers, and then if you are a media company, you know that you're going to make the big bucks off of that. Test match cricket has sort of been reduced to the big three, and now I keep mentioning the big three only because everybody keeps mentioning the big three. The Steve Waugh and the Jason Holders of the world are talking about India, England, and Australia. They sort of demanded a coup back in 2013-14, if you guys remember, that they wanted to sort of take over, have majority of the revenue come through them, and have a trickle down economics effect, sort of to the rest of the associate nations, including test nations, and treating everybody as second class citizens. And the biggest piece of the pie goes to India. They generate the most revenue, so in their heads they have the authority to take home the most revenue. But what that basically does at the end of the day is it leaves the ICC powerless. The ICC has no jurisdiction into who tours who, because that's a bilateral contract signed by two cricket boards, and B, doesn't have a jurisdiction on who gets what kind of money, because at the end of the day, if India is bringing 65% of the revenue, which is in the hundreds of millions of dollars, then they should be getting a chunk of that profit. What that basically ends up doing is smaller teams like UAE, Ireland, Scotland, Netherlands, Namibia, etc., you name it, PNG, Canada, they just get a lot less infrastructure money to build and develop. And that's what Jason Holder was talking about in this article as well, ironically, to the Hindustan Times, which is that because of the way that the big three is operated, we don't get enough money to play test cricket. And even if a cricket player wants to prioritize the purest form of the game over a cash grab at the SA20 or the ILT20, they can't, because it's just, those leagues are paying 3x what test match cricket is paying for. But then it comes down to what the broadcasters are paying for test cricket, et cetera, et cetera. At this rate, the only three countries that'll play test cricket is India, England, and Australia. And the rest of us will just watch them, watch them succeed. And the gap between them versus teams like Sri Lanka, Pakistan, West Indies, Zimbabwe, Bangladesh will just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And we've already started seeing that happen. There's no way. The only countries that can go in and beat Australia and in Australia are India and somewhat South Africa. And apart from that, nobody even comes close. Same thing with, going into India and beating India. There's only a few countries. England and Australia are one of those. India doesn't even play Pakistan. That's a whole different situation. And it just goes on to show that, yes, international cricket is dying a slow and steady death, but a sure death for sure. It's just the way that the game is being played. Everywhere else, it's a league system. The NBA has a league system. The Premier League has a league system. Football in Europe has a league system. Cricket has an international system where league takes a back foot. And I feel like that we're in the midst of that shift happening in real time.
I also love how the NBA, and you've mentioned this before in the podcast, where NBA has an off season, so it gives players a chance to rest, recuperate, rebuild their bodies, recover from injuries, get the well rest that they need. But now, because of all these leagues, players are engaged all year long, which further increases the chances of injuries as well.
Yeah, 100%. We've seen people like Kane Williamson get injured in leagues and miss chunks of the World Cup, which is, I guess, one of the last legacy things left in the international cricket.
And he seems cursed since that injury because he keeps getting injured again and again and again.
Yeah, he was just in the Pakistan-New Zealand series. He played a couple games and it sat out the rest of the series. It just shows that, the risk of those players going in, it just seems like their priority is, I'd rather get risk at an ILT20 than be able to play a final for Pakistan. That's what happened to Shaheen, not the ILT20 specifically, but he was injured and he couldn't play the final of a T20 World Cup, or wasn't fully fit, and we had a half-assed Shaheen go through into the final and basically cost us that game and that World Cup. So, and then players who have a very small window to make the majority of their money. That's how sports works in any form. When you're playing 10, 12 years in that sport, that's where you make 85% of the money that you're ever going to make. And then, if you're smart, then you have good investments, then those investments pay dividends in the future. Otherwise, that's it.
Or you can come into the broadcasting or the coaching aspect of.
But not every one of them do. 1% of them do. They'll be able to translate that career into broadcasting. Apart from that, other people just either die broke or find some way to make more money coaching, et cetera, et cetera. And so I see where the likes of your Shaheen Afridis and your Haris Raufs would be like, I maybe don't want to play a test series in Australia. I'd rather make $125,000 in 3 weeks at the BBL.
Jason Holder in the article said, you've got a situation, a dilemma even, where you can play a test series for X amount, or you can play a franchise for 3 times the amount. And more often than not, you'll constantly get players opting for the franchise option because essentially, like Jason said, it's 3x the amount. It's probably 1/3 of the work, right? Because let's say if you're a fast bowler, you're bowling 4 overs, you're fielding for 20 overs, and
you might get to bat.
You're done in 4 hours. High intensity, high octane, and that's it. And you get paid the big bucks to do that.
Less chances of injury, less chances of getting, workload management is there, less chances of just getting overall fitness fatigue. You'll be fit for the next day. You can play back-to-back games if you want. You can have a condensed tournament like the ILT20. It's about 2.5 weeks, not even. GT20 was 2.5 weeks. So basically, you can go in and make a lot of money in a less amount of time. And sounds like a fair deal to me.
West Indies, if you're a West Indian cricketer and you're on their central contract, you'll make something between USD 100,000 to 150,000
a year.
And then on top of that, you might get paid USD 5,000 per test match as a match fee. So last year, West Indies played 6 test matches. So that's just 30,000 USD in match fees. Then let's say you make 100,000. That's 130,000 as a professional, high-profile test cricketer for the West Indies. Now compare that with what Kyle Mayers, a West Indian player, is being paid right now to play the SA20. And again, Kyle is one of the players who opted out of the Test match series against Australia in Australia. He is getting paid upwards of 250,000 USD for 1 month. And on top of that, his IPL salary is close to USD 60,000. So he's essentially making, $310,000 in a span of 3 months, playing leagues, lower effort, less time on the field, less fatigue, probably more longevity to his career versus baking in the sun, playing test match cricket. So, and compared that also, like I mentioned, so West Indies only played 6 test matches last year. Australia, Usman Khwaja, he played 13 test matches last year. So that coupled with the fact that Australians also make more money playing each test match. I think their test match fees is around US dollars 12,500. So not only do they have a higher match fees for playing each test match, they're also playing more test matches. So that for an Australian player plus their yearly contract, it makes more sense for Mitchell Starc or Pat Cummins to save their body to play test matches, to play ODIs, to be on the central contract. And Mitchell Starc famously has left IPL contracts for the past 7 to 8 years
at the tune of millions of dollars on the table.
Some would say at the peak of his career. Right now, he's entering his 30s, but he's sort of a legend of the game already. He has 600 plus wickets, 300 wickets in test matches. He's won 2 ODI World Cups. He's won
T20
World Cup. He's World Test Champion. So I think he's collected all those rings across his playing career. he's had a legacy now as a cricketer for Australia, and now he's opting for the IPL this year, and that's only because it's sort of a build up towards the T20 World Cup, which is to take place in June in the Caribbean and the USA.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned Mitchell Stark because I think that's the best template of how you can succeed in both international cricket and league cricket. Now, this person has made it a priority to go out there and get the silverware for his achievements. And we've said that many times before. The legends of the game are legends only because they have the World Cups under their belt. You know, Wasim Akram has taken over 900 wickets in his international career, but that set aside with the fact that he was the man of the match of the 92 World Cup final tells you all you need to know about who Wasim Akram is, right? At the same time, if you have players who just opt to play leagues, what kind of legacy are they cementing? What kind of prestige are they developing in the annals of cricket history? Not a lot. Not a lot. Kyle Mayers may be getting $350,000 a year, but remember the name is just going to be Carlos Brathwaite, who now that I mentioned him is also sort of given up international cricket to play league cricket. He was just at the GT20 and we saw a lot of him, and we realized. I mean, that was one of the questions I asked you. I was like, why is this guy here? Like, remember the name Carlos Brathwaite.
Ironically, the name has been forgotten.
And he's out here playing GT20 cricket where he could have been one of the staples of West Indian cricket, trying to get them a third chip. I don't understand what's going on here, you know?
Carlos has also gotten into broadcasting as well. So he's already looking to transition his career. And I think it's two reasons of why Carlos's career sort of went downhill. At the beginning of his career, he sort of reached a peak moment, which some cricketers never get to achieve. And I mean, imagine hitting 4 sixes in the final of a World Cup to win the World Cup. It's really hard to top that. And, you know, he was part of the league circuit for a long while. But again, he was never able to replicate that same performance. Again, he was very close to doing it once at the 2019 ODI World Cup against New Zealand. He hit 100. He almost finished the match there. Trent Bolt caught him. I think the last over was the last wicket. So Brathwaite nearly did it again. But yeah, again, his form died. He's getting older. And we saw him at the G20. He's a family man now. I'm guessing he's looking after a broader vision, looking forward to his family, his kid, and what he can provide or leave behind for them. And again, they are athletes. The other thing is, we're saying here that, you know, Kyle Mayers is making $300,000. That's really peanuts compared to NBA or football or NFL or
also,
any
I feel like we're picking on Kyle a lot. Like, Kyle, if you're watching the podcast, you're just the name that popped in that. Like, we're not trying to go after your money. You know, you do what you want with that. But I agree. Like, depending on the way that the sports is being played all around the world, cricket is the least paid amount of sports. I think it has to do with where the audience mostly lies, which is in the subcontinent area. You know, lower buying power, less you know, expensive ads. Even though the broadcasting is just insane, you know, when you have an India-Pakistan game, you have you know, almost the tune of a billion people tuning in to watch those games. But
quick fact: Virat Kohli's net worth is around $126 million, as quoted by the Financial Express. Now that 10x is Messi's net worth. So the biggest cricketer versus the biggest footballer.
The fact that even Virat Kohli makes 126 million, what is that, a year?
That's his total net worth. That's what he makes.
I think he makes about somewhere between 30 to 50 a year. I think I did read somewhere that that's how much he's taking home a year, but that's because he has brand endorsements with Puma. He has his own shoe line. He has
most paid player in the IPL.
Most paid player in the IPL. He's the most paid player in the BCCI as well, I believe.
I think his Puma deal itself was a lot of money.
Yeah, and he's smart because he got his wife into it, and now they both are promoting it. So, and then MRF pays him big bucks, and he's in like every other ad for India right now. He knows how to market himself. At the same time, he knows how not to lose his legacy behind in cricket. You know, he does what LeBron James does really smartly, which is to sell himself. You know, LeBron James will act. LeBron James will go out and shoot, you know, ads for insurance companies, but he will every 4 or 5 years go out there and win a chip as well. Just keep solidifying and cementing his his aura and his legacy into the game of basketball. That's similar.
No, I think we have the same argument in Pakistan where we're like, oh, why are Indian players brands? Why is Shubman Gill a brand? Why is Virat Kohli a brand? But why isn't Babar Azam a brand? Why isn't Shadab Khan a brand? And I think it's because, well, Virat Kohli in specific, like his performances, they back up all the ads he does, right? You see the brand that he's working with, and if you attach Virat Kohli with that, the brand just gets uplifted.
Elevates, yeah.
It elevates.
It's kind of like Steph Curry. When Steph Curry signed with Under Armour, nobody knew what Under Armour was, and then now everybody wants to. We're wearing.
Do you know the story where I think Nike wanted to sign him first, but they made like a mistake with his name? Like there was a typo with his name, and I think his dad also didn't want him to work with Nike, and eventually he just switched to Under Armour, and I was just noticing, like we were playing cricket the other day, the amount of people who are wearing Under Armour shoes and sportswear. It's really fascinating to see Under Armour sort of become a third or fourth force within the athletic wear.
I also think it's because we live very close to an outlet store.
That's buy one, get one off.
That's where I got my hat. So it could be both. I mean, Under Armour is definitely one of those brands that it, has become a household name. But Steph Curry has a lot to do with that. Same thing with Nike back in the 80s with Jordan. And now Jordan Air is his own company, or Air Jordan is his own company. And Virat Kohli is sort of walking in the footsteps of those giants. And, India has a very strong marketing and PR agency base. They know how to market their players now. They've taken templates from those sports and sort of just copy pasted it to their major players. The fact that, Shubman Gill has only been in international cricket for a year and a half, 2 years max, is already a household name. That just goes to show how amazing their marketing team is, how amazing their branding team is. And he's, just doing it right, It has to do with how strong the entertainment business is in India. They have 3 or 4 huge film industries there, the Hindi film industry, Telugu, Tamil film industry, and so on and so forth. And, that's exactly the reason how NBA players and Pepe and PK were famous, because they were dating really, really important, famous people. We don't have that kind of structure in other parts of the world. I'm just not speaking about Pakistan. I'm speaking generally. And, what was the biggest story of last week? Oh, Shoaib Malik married Sana Javed or whoever, right? That was the biggest story of the week, right? They have that story in India 4 to 5 times a day. Not the marrying part, but who's dating who. It just builds your PR, builds your rapport, gets you in front of people's eyes. It's not the game of anonymity, it's the game of exposure. And India knows really well how to do that with their players. That's why they make the big bucks. That's why sponsorship rights are bigger there. And there's a lot of people there. Well, 1.3 billion people are tuning into the only sport that India plays really, really well. So why not? And it's the opposite in other places. The Pakistan doesn't have the buying power. There's like maybe 1 to 7% of people who can actually, buy stuff. Like Amazon does not want to go there because of security concerns. The big brands, they don't even have Visa in there properly. Like credit card companies don't want to get there. PayPal don't want to get there. So how are they going to ever expand their buying power so that ad revenue comes in that is equivalent to what, the Indian media is getting? You just can't. There's so many structural flaws in that sort of hierarchy in Pakistan that can be just replicated everywhere. You can go to West Indies, you can see the same issues. Bangladesh, same issues. Sri Lanka, same issues, right? These are countries that are economically struggling, and so that their buying power is less. Advertisers don't want to pay that much money because there's no point. And we've felt that when we go out and try to pitch the podcast to advertisers, it's tough. And it's easier to pitch to Indian advertisers than it is to pitch to Pakistani advertisers or Canadian advertisers. There's just not enough money there, even though there are eyeballs. So there's a big structural shift that needs to happen. And India, England, and Australia have to be, quote unquote, the big brothers and actually help the smaller nations out to build. Otherwise, it's just going to be them 3 playing cricket all year round.
The one thing that I like about India and what they've done with the cricketing industry is that they've built a business or a market around it. It's sort of like they want cricket and cricketers to flourish. Like they want Shubman Gill to be the biggest brand. They want Jaiswal to be the next big thing. They want Virat Kohli to remain like a legend of the game. And it's sort of like, yes, you eat, but we all eat together.
Yeah.
we're in this together.
Yeah.
Whereas in Pakistan, I feel like there's too many leg pullers out there. Like after a long time, we've gotten like a great batsman in Babar Azam, and people in the media and the cricket board itself, they're looking to pull him down as badly as they can. Like remove the captaincy, put some pressure on him, have stories here and there. And it's the same with all of our top players. Like we haven't really had a brand since Shahid Afridi. So it's sad to see, but I want to come back to.
And then before
yeah,
Shahid Afridi, we didn't have a brand until Wasim Akram. And then before Wasim Akram was like Imran Khan. We've had really successful people in between, the Misbahs, the Yunuses of the world, the Vickies of the world, Wakar Bhais of the world, Shoaib Akhtars of the world. But they weren't really able to translate that kind of stardom to the way that India has with their players.
Yeah. Just coming back to this point, because we were just comparing up money and brands and how much each player makes. Coming back to the topic of league cricket, the influx of it, I even feel like there might be a shortage of professional players in the world. And the reason why I say that is because right now with the 3 leagues happening, the SA20 and the ILT20, they have 6 teams each, so 12 teams in those leagues. The BPL has 7 teams. So there's about 7 plus 6 is 13 plus 6 is 19 teams. And there's about, on average, you can say 20 players in each team squad. And I did the math. There's close to 380 players involved in these 3 leagues happening right now as we speak. And that includes, foreign players and domestic players. Couple that with the international matches happening, there's close to maybe 450, 500 players involved, plus the coaching staff, plus all the media stuff. So there might be a point where me and you might need to come out of retirement and pursue.
I never took
leagues.
retirement. I never took retirement, but I don't know what you're talking about. I'm ready.
You never debuted, so you can't retire.
There we go. But I'm ready, guys. Give me a phone call.
On top of that, just from a more of a Pakistan perspective, I really feel like the PSL and the PSL's playing window, it's going to be in danger in the coming years. And the reason why I say that is in the past, the PSL was it had a sweet spot. It was after the BPL. It was before the IPL. Players could go out to play the BPL, play the PSL. PSL back in the day was in Dubai, UAE. So they get a feel of the Dubai life as well. Now the PSL has shifted back to Pakistan. The BPL is happening at the same time. The ILT20 is happening at the same time. The SA20 is happening, and the big danger, which could result in the PSL losing its significance, could be the league which Saudi Arabia wants to potentially launch. If that launches, it'll likely overlap with the PSL. And obviously, if it's a Saudi league, they'll pump in as much money as they can to get a Babar Azam, to get a Shaheen Afridi. So with all that being said, there is danger to the PSL. There's danger to international cricket. And if I just walk you through all the leagues that I know are happening, just from a monthly point of view of which is taking what window: Big Bash, December, January; BPL, Jan, Feb; LT20, Jan, Feb; SA20, Jan, Feb; PSL, February, March; IPL, 2 months, March to May; Vitality Blast, May, July; Major League Cricket, July; Zim Afro T10, July; GT20, July, August; The 100, August; the LPL, July, August; CPL, August, September; Abu Dhabi T10, November, December. So essentially, cricket all year long. So much so, the ICC has almost no option but to have a tournament in June or October. Because anytime before or after, you could be jeopardizing another league happening at the same time.
Yeah, so they have to sort of have that conversation with the leagues, no? When there's a FIFA World Cup, depending, like this time it was in, what was it, September, October, I believe. In Qatar, they had the Premier League stopped. That was a 4 or 5 week window where it was international games
so
only.
is that where cricket is going? Cricket is going to be with the whole football model, where we'll just ICC will be a governing model. Someone said ICC is going to be like an event management company that just manages ICC events, Champions Trophy, World T20, ODI World Cup, World Test Championship Final, and that'll essentially be it.
You know what the answer is? I was thinking about this quite hard recently, and I was actually listening to an episode of Batta Fast where they were talking about this. They were talking about something else, but they skewed over to this area that we're in right now. I think the answer is if you need to break the monopoly of the big three or the triopoly, whatever that word is. You need to do that, and nobody else can do that until you start generating that kind of money. And nobody, the Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, they can join their own top big four or whatever. They won't be able to generate that kind of money that the top three are doing right now. So how do you break that? You won't be able to do that unless you're able to bring that kind of money or more. And cricket is the only sport right now that the Saudis haven't broken into. They've broken into football. They've broken into the NBA. They're broken into golf. They're broken into tennis. Cricket is not their thing yet. And
they're into cricket, though. I've seen a lot of.
that's what I'm saying. They're into cricket.
Yeah.
And the Saudis are very close to the Emiratis, who are definitely into cricket. They love their cricket, and it's only a matter of time before that happens. And with the Saudis, we know that they don't. Money is not an object to them. So what happens when they start their own league and they're giving 2x what the IPL pays, 3x what the IPL pays, 5x what the IPL pays? You know what? What if they buy out the ICC and they want cricket year long? What if they start a new roster and they start a new way of playing cricket and they actually have it a little bit more organized? And the ICC is worth what, 200 million? Saudis are worth $1 billion.
Yeah, money sort of is not really a huge factor for them. And I think they are very keen on breaking into cricket. They can build stadiums in months. They can call the big players.
And so let's say in a model where the Saudis are leading everything, they start a new cricket council and they have a 6-month window where league cricket is happening, but it's only their cricket that's happening. So let's say if you're playing in the Saudi leagues, they'll pay you $10 million a year, but you're not allowed to play any other league. Sort of like the IPL model, but bigger. And you'll see a lot of Indian players leaving then.
It's hard. No, I disagree with that because the BCCI has a very strong hold over their players. The only way you can play other leagues in the world is if you retire from Indian cricket. We saw
$10 million a year, everybody retires, bro.
We saw Yuvraj Singh in the T20 only after he retired. Ambati Rayudu, I think, is now going on the league circuit. So it's going to be tough.
But what I'm saying is, let's say if a player like, I was just looking at a video of Prithvi Shaw, who has no aspect of playing Indian cricket anymore. Like, he basically blew his chance. Why can't he sign up for $10 million a year and play this fictional Saudi league?
Well,
and then not only that, but Saudi goes out in this fictional world. Saudi goes out, buys the ICC out, and starts its own thing. Like, what? ICC is just becoming more of a hindrance because they've lost all authority by sort of bending over to the big three. So why should anybody listen to the ICC anymore? Well, they haven't done anything to expand the game. Like, the same number of teams that are playing in this, that like 10 teams play the World Cup, bro. That's crazy.
World Cup.
Less teams play the World Cup now than they did in 2003 or 2007.
Yeah.
How? Why?
Because they haven't really spent a lot of money in developing cricket and associate nations.
Exactly. And so they're
like we I don't know if this is probably going to be out after the Todd Ziffer podcast, and you'll understand that the Canadian players were working full-time jobs and playing cricket part-time. They were in school full-time and then leaving courses to go play for Canada. They didn't have enough money. Obviously, they were working part-time jobs, security, Uber, taxi, whatever you name it. Odd jobs here and there just to make ends meet. And only now are they able to have full-time contracts with Cricket Canada because now they have the ODI status. Now ICC is funding them with money. So I think ICC has more of a responsibility and developing these associate nations. So hopefully one day they can come up to play, have test status. And maybe I should couple this with what Michael Holding said, have divisions in the test format, or Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, have promotions, have relegations.
There's a reason why the English Premier League model works, and a lot of sports leagues follow that. Like, our amateur cricket league in Canada that we play follows that. We almost got relegated to a lower league because we came in the bottom two or something like that.
I think we did.
Right? So, like, if we can follow that, then why can't cricket follow that? At least if you want to save Test cricket, that's stakes. Let's say you can have a 6-team league. But then in that 6-team league, if India and Pakistan are in the same league, you have to play every single team. That makes sense to me. These bilaterals are not really helping anybody because they're meaningless. Pakistan lost 3-0, and then the last 2 games were just like dead rubbers. I didn't want to watch them.
Nobody still knows how the World Test Championship points table works. So, I mean, just talking more about the solutions, Jason Holder suggested that there should be a separate window for Test cricket, that there should be more money pumped into Test cricket for Test cricketers.
Who's going to do that?
It could be the cricket boards, and the cricket boards could be funded by the ICC. Jason Holder also said that there should be a minimum wage for Test cricketers playing each Test match. Now, just more regarding the separate window for Test cricket, we have a comment from Kavish, a loyal, longtime patron, fan, follower of the podcast. Kavish says the schedule of cricket plays a huge part. And he says, I feel like if there is a proper schedule, many problems can be solved. For example, there should be a time span of 3 to 5 months where every league should be played, and a period of months where only international cricket, especially Test cricket, is played. With that, the leagues aren't spread over the whole year, and there is no overlapping between a Test series and a T20 league. Sort of what's happening right now with South Africa, where their league is overlapping the Test series in New Zealand. They've sent in their second string team, 7 uncapped players. It makes
crazy.
No sense.
It's insane. It makes no sense.
Yeah. And so something similar is being said by Shazi. Shazi says from Patreon, when I asked if international cricket is at risk due to all these leagues, he says, in short, the answer is yes. The more lucrative T20 leagues are they're destroying international cricket, but the cricket boards are to blame as well. I think this sort of ties back into how the future tours are planned, how West Indies plays 6 Test matches. Babar Azam played 5 Test matches last year. It has to do with how the PCB is scheduling these matches. And obviously, the more white ball cricket, and specifically the more T20s you schedule, the more money you make from broadcasting. So that's just a fact of the matter.
That just means that you have to make Test cricket more interesting so that broadcasters pay more money and people want to watch it more.
Someone said 4-day Test matches.
I think Michael Wan said that.
Yeah, I mean, Brendan.
I don't know if that's the answer. I don't know if less days is the answer, because then doesn't that equal to more draws?
Well, they could also be. You want to play faster as well to have a result, so that could maybe even increase the amount of results. You could also think about like how many Test matches actually go to day 5 in this recent era. Very rarely, I would say, like 2 in 10 matches are going into day 5. Like none of the Pakistan matches against Australia went to day 5.
The West Indies game finished in 2.5 days.
None of the India versus South Africa matches went to day 5. So 4-day Test matches, maybe. I don't know.
Sure, I think 4-day Test matches and innings a day. That makes sense, I guess. To quicken up the game, something's got to give. Is the point now? Is that Saudi buying out cricket? Maybe. Is that 4-day Test matches? Maybe. Is that league tables? Maybe. But at this rate, I feel like we're almost reading the obituary for one of the greatest forms of cricket that we have, which is Test cricket, and one of the more loyal forms of sports that we follow, which is international cricket. And I don't want to say goodbye to it just yet. But at this point, Bashar, I think we do have to say goodbye to our subscribers and our followers. Is there anything else you want to say before we cap it off? We're kind of leaving them on a bleak notice, but I think this is a very good start to a very, very long conversation. A conversation I want to be more educated on. A conversation I want our listeners to get more educated on, because we don't want to be the boy who cried wolf, but we will cry out that international cricket is dying every single day until someone comes out there and saves it.
I agree. I think this is just more of a rant of a podcast, and glad we got to come here and not talk about a match, not do a preview or review, but more like a think piece as to what's happening in the world of cricket right now. Maybe in 6 months, couple of years, we'll look back on this episode and be like, "Yo, that was a very
premature
future looking episode."
Okay, yeah. And so if you guys have thoughts about this, I know this is a very heated topic. We touched on a lot of controversial things, but always leave it in the comments. We're going to be reading tons of these and trying to respond as best as we can. If you guys want to follow us on the socials, you can do that in the description as well. Always check out our Patreon if you guys want to support the podcast. Check out our Discord channel if you guys want to be part of a greater community for free. And just vibe, chill out, check Test cricket as much as you can, and make sure that you're following international cricket, because to me, at least, honestly speaking, personally speaking, I love watching Test match cricket. I love watching international cricket. Even if it's a dead rubber, there are stakes to this. I just feel like league cricket has no stakes. Even if my favorite team is playing, it's hard to be, it's hard to have a deep connection with them, just because that same player that's my favorite in my team in the BPL might be against my favorite team in the PSL, and so on and so forth. So
I
that's,
remember matches that happened 4 years ago in test matches.
Yeah.
But I don't remember what happened in the PSL 6 match Karachi versus Lahore.
I have no idea.
It's out of my memory.
So yeah, just wanted to shed some light on that. Thank you very much for listening. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Cheers.